Hey there, welcome to the Tailgate Talks. What I'm going to do is something a little different in this series of videos. Instead of lugging all my gear out into the woods to talk about some basic things, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk from the back of my truck here, just to give you some quick insight into a few things. Today what I'm going to talk about is my car bag, like what I carry in my car in the wintertime. Now, some people might call this a get home bag. But I like to think of it as a little bit more because maybe I can't leave my car. Maybe I have to stay at my car until I'm waiting for rescue or waiting for the roads to be plowed in the wintertime. That's a big thing. So I have a few things that I would keep in my car but not necessarily carry with me if I was actually going to leave the vehicle to try to go home. So the big important thing I want to talk to you about is clothing. So, in my truck, I always have a bunch of junk. My back seat is just full of everything. I don't worry too much about having the right, stuff with me. But in my car, which is what I drive to work every day, it's a little bit different. I have to keep some stuff in the trunk, and I kind of limit to what I have, but I want to make sure I have all the right stuff. So the first thing are clothing. I always carry extra clothing. Here's a nice wool sweater. Wool is a great thing for you to carry in there. It's heavy, but it's warm and it retains your body heat even when it's wet. So I like to carry a lot of wool things in my car. I have I have a sweater here. I have a pair of pants. I would carry extra socks, all that stuff. Now what I do is I go to a thrift store, your Salvation Army, wherever, and I find clothes that are too big for me. Because what I want to do is, I have on my work clothes when I'm headed to work. So what I want to do is I want to have some extra clothes that I can just put on over top of those. I don't want to have to be standing out there in the middle of winter alongside the road or in a ditch or wherever changing my clothes. I don't need to do that. I need to get clothes that are a couple sizes bigger and put them on. Now it also benefits me because if I want to take and stuff leaves or pine needles or newspapers, whatever I have in there, I can add some insulation to these, so I can shove that between the two layers of clothing that I have on. Another thing, always carry a winter hat. You can carry just this normal beanie. I actually have one of these in here. You don't want to, I don't care what I look like when wearing this. I don't care if it's a goofy looking hat. I just want something to be warm. This is very warm on my ears. I can strap it on. If I'm digging into my bag out of my car to make it home or to stay warm for the night, looking fashionable is the least of my worries. So make sure you get something nice and warm. Another thing I carry are some gloves. Now you can carry your winter ski gloves out there. They're going to keep you warm. They're big, insulated and thick gloves. But the problem is if you need to start a fire or you need to do something, you need to do something in your car or something, there's a chance that you're going to rip these because they're just made out of synthetic nylon material and they rip a lot easier. So what you can do, you can also carry some leather gloves in there. Now leather gloves usually aren't very insulated, so they don't keep you very warm. These are kind of a combination between my ski gloves and my leather gloves. They're very insulated on the inside. The downfall of these are I don't have a lot of dexterity and flexibility in my hands to use it. So when I go, I usually carry two gloves. I carry some leather gloves that if I have to, get a fire going or something like that, and I don't want to melt the other gloves, but if I'm just walking somewhere, walking home, I would put on my ski gloves and they would keep me warmer while I was walking home. Now another thing that I have is a nice wool blanket that I keep back there. I mean, this can come in handy for a multitude of things, covering yourself up, making a shelter out of it, whatever you need to do, even if you need to put it on the ground to, if you have to, change in a flat tire or something like that, even if it's not a dire emergency, this can still come in handy. I have a wool one because I know it's going to be nice and warm and it's going to hold up and it's going to be tough. Now I also carry this little raincoat. Now this isn't some super expensive thing. This is the Frog Togs I got from Walmart, and I keep that in there. But you can also, you know, you can keep just your little compact rain poncho. You just have to remember it's not going to be as durable depending on what you do, but you should have some rain gear in there. You know, I have this wool stuff that I said retains its insulating properties when it's wet. That doesn't mean I want to be wet. That doesn't mean I want to be lugging around wet wool clothes. So if I can have something to keep me dry also that I can put on as another layer on top of that, that'll keep the rain out. Now I definitely recommend carrying some kind of knife with you. And it's just basic survival type skills, and you never know what you're going to need to do out there. You know, it can be used for, you know, your fire making, your shelter making, whatever else, but it can also be used, you know, maybe you ended up in a ditch and you have to cut your seatbelt off to get out or something like that. So I would recommend carrying something, you know, it doesn't matter what. Fixed blade knife I'd recommend, but I also have folding knives in my car too. Oh, one thing about the knife, I would recommend stainless steel, just because this is something that you're going to be keeping in your trunk and not keeping an eye on. And if you get carbon steel ones, it's possible that once you go for it that it's going to be rusty. So I would recommend stainless on your knife that you're going to keep in your trunk. Now I alluded a little bit there to fire making, and I think that is a big thing that you have to be prepared for in your vehicle, because you don't know if you're going to be able to make it home or how far it is, or, you know, out on the highway, especially on the interstate, it can be quite a distance for you walking to get from exit to exit to find civilization out there, and you may need to spend the night, you may need to get yourself warmed up. So what we have in our cars at home, every car has my little fire bundle here. Has a Bic lighter, which I do recommend Bic lighters. They're you know, pretty durable and reliable whenever you need to get a fire going. And this bundle of sticks here isn't just a regular bundle of sticks. This is fat wood. Now you can buy this at usually at a hardware store. I found this at Walmart. You can find it out in the woods if you know what you're doing. In the future, we're going to actually do a little video on how to find fat wood, what it looks like, stuff like that. But for making these fire kits, it's real easy to just go buy a box of it at Walmart or wherever and put it together. I just put some rubber band around it, a piece of string, whatever. I put a lighter right on it, and we just throw these in the car. And in fact, you can even keep a couple of these in there. Now this, I guess just right on cue, this will, the great thing about this, I'm not going to go into fat wood, the details of it too much, but I will tell you that one of the great things about it is you're able to, as long as the wind's not blowing too hard, you're going to be able to get this lit with just your cigarette lighter. I mean, hopefully you can see that. I mean, the wind keeps blowing it out, but it lights fairly easily with this. It has a lot of pine resin in it, which helps it light, and you'll be able to get a fire going and then go find, you know, some bigger pieces or whatever to put on it. This is a great thing to carry for a fire emergency kit. Now, I always like to carry backup stuff, so I have that lighter with my fat wood. I also carry, this is called a ferrocerium rod. And if you don't know what that is, you can check out. I do have a couple videos on my YouTube channel using the ferro rod. Basically what it is, it creates a lot of sparks. Now this isn't an open flame, so unlike the cigarette lighter, I'm not going to be able to just light that fat wood up with it or whatever else, so I would have to have some other tinder material, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But it is great because it doesn't run out of fluid. This is a pretty big rod. It will last a long time for you, especially if you're just putting it in your trunk as an emergency thing. If you're not going to carry that, what I would recommend is carrying an extra lighter or two, just spread throughout the car so that you have them. If you like matches, you can surely carry some matches. This is a waterproof match container, and I also have the matches in here that I made waterproof by dipping them in wax. So basically I just lit a candle and I dipped the head of the match down into the wax, and that helps it to be waterproof. So speaking of candles, that's another thing that I would recommend that you keep in your car, because if you're trapped in the car for the night, you'd be really surprised at how much just even a little candle will help give you heat inside of that car. Now, if you do light this inside of the car, two things you need to remember. Number one, it is an open flame. You need to keep an eye on it. Don't fall asleep when you got this candle lit in there. And number two, crack a window. I mean, this is going to burn up the oxygen in there, and it is an open flame, so you want to crack the window to get some fresh air into that. And just blow, once the car warms up, blow it out, save it. Even one of these little tea light candles, you should be able to get, a couple carloads of heat out of it. But if you want, just throw a bigger candle in there. It'll last a lot longer. This will also work, if you're out trying to get a fire going, light my candle up. If I'm having trouble getting my fire going, my tinder material going, I can light my candle. I don't have to keep using my lighter or whatever else I have. I can have a flame that I keep a hold of right here. These tea light candles are nice. I will suggest though, if you're going to keep this kit in your car all year long, like through the summer, put these into like a Ziploc bag or a sandwich bag or something, because in the summer they're probably going to melt down. So now if this is just a winter kit, you take in and out, which is what I do. I swap out the different kits that I have depending on the temperature outside. But keep in mind that these will melt in the summertime. Now here's some, we're going to call tinder material. I know a lot of people have probably heard of, getting your dryer lint. You can mix that with wax or Vaseline, and it'll take a spark very easily, like from your ferro rod, your match, obviously your Bic lighter will light it up. If you mix it with some Vaseline or something, it's going to burn a lot longer. And you can check out some videos that I have on the YouTube channel about using different materials as tinder material and fire extenders on that. These are fine too. These are just basically some compressed cardboard fire starters that you can buy at the store. I always keep, especially my fire starter stuff, I like to keep it in, Ziploc bags to keep it a little waterproof, or another waterproof bag, keep it from getting wet. But I also have these, which are some homemade fire starters, which I do have a video on the channel here that you can check out how to make these. But basically these are cotton cosmetic rounds that we've dipped in paraffin wax. Now I added some crayon to it to make them orange, but just a normal paraffin wax works fine. I also left a little bit fuzzy here, so it makes it a little bit easier lighting. But these are great because that wax makes this waterproof, and it also helps to make it fire extender. These things will burn for 5-10 minutes depending on the conditions out there. Just throw a pack in your car, they're going to last. Just like those tea light candles, I'd recommend putting these in some kind of bag, because in the summer, whenever it heats up, they are made of wax, so they are going to melt a little bit. Now, along the lines of like heat and keeping warm, I threw a couple packs of these hot hands in there. I mean, I guess Hot Hands is the name brand that just any kind of hand warmers will work. As long as you don't damage the packaging, these will last for years. I like these because I can put them in my socks, in my shoes, under my clothes, whatever I need to do to keep warm. And these actually really help you stay warm whenever you stick them inside your clothes. Usually when I'm out camping, I throw some in my sleeping bag and keep my feet warm at night. These are a great thing. What you can do, you can go to places after winter time or starting into spring. You usually get these on clearance. You can buy a whole box of these and just keep them. Throw some in your car. Another thing I like to keep in there, these are what they call emergency survival blankets. You've probably seen them on a commercial where someone is sitting wrapped up in this thing. I mean, it's okay like that. It will kind of trap in your body heat, but these really work best whenever you have a fire out front and you're able to reflect that fire and trap that heat and the radiant heat from that fire onto you. So I always like to throw a few of these in here. You can always improvise something with them, with your fire to keep you warm. Even your fire from your candle here, it's going to benefit if you can use one of these as a behind it to trap that heat from the candle and direct it towards you. So I always throw a few of these in there. They're very small. They're pretty inexpensive. You can always grab a few and stick in there. I will tell you, they're not really reusable. Like, you aren't going to undo this into this big, these are, let's see, 84 inches by 52 inches. When you take this out and unfold it, you're not going to get it back in this little package. So these really are a survival item, like a one-use item. So Another thing I always like to have with me is some water. You never know. Now in the wintertime you might have some snow out there, things like that, but you never know what you're going to have. I found I usually get the better kind of bottles, a little heavier bottle, because if you're keeping these in your car in the winter, remember they're going to freeze. And when water freezes, it expands, and the ice expands in there, and I found that the cheaper ones split a lot more often than a little better bottle does. But these still could split, so you might want to make sure you keep these away from your other stuff in case they do split when they freeze, and then when they remelt, then you're going to get water everywhere. Now that's some water that I'm carrying with me, but I also like to carry a stainless steel container with me, just in case, like I mentioned about the snow, but I want to melt that snow. So I'm going to build my fire. It's very hard to boil water or melt snow in a plastic bottle like that. So I always like to throw in an aluminum container, a stainless steel container. I don't really like aluminum, even though I said that. Aluminum doesn't hold up as well when you're heating it up over the open flame like that. So definitely go with the stainless steel. Always make sure you take your cap off before you're especially if you're boiling water in this, because you will basically be like a pressure cooker here, and it's going to explode in your fire. Make sure you take the lid off before you boil, or even just put this onto a fire. One of the other things I like to carry with me are a few zip ties or wire ties. It's pretty easy to get a bunch. They're not very expensive. You can take one, use it to wrap them all up. But they come in very handy for, as in a replacement of cordage or any kind of string or rope. You can use these zip ties instead. Now the great thing, I'm going to show you a little trick here. So when I hook this together, I mean, it's only going to end up that long. So you're kind of limited on what you can have, but I don't think you need to carry a whole bunch of different sizes of these with you to get the right lengths that you need. So what you can do, if you take one of these, and basically we're going to stick that end through the next one, and then there we go. We have an extended zip tie, and we can do that with a couple of them. So now I went from that one zip tie to now I have one that I can hook up that's this big around. These are great. They're very inexpensive. They don't take up much space. Throw a pack in your car. Now also, what I like to do is carry some duct tape in there. Here's some black, here's some orange, whatever you prefer. I like the orange because one thing would happen is if I actually need some help, I'm out in an emergency situation, I could actually use this orange duct tape, and I could put 3 X's maybe on the hood of my car, on the side of the door, whatever, so that someone would know that I need some help, that it's an emergency. Duct tape is just a great all-around thing for hooking stuff up. It also works as a tinder material because this is flammable. Just be careful that if you're trying to light this, that it's not sticking to your finger while you're lighting it, because then you just got kind of a flaming piece of sticky adhesive tape on your finger right now. So always make sure, always fold a little bit over. Make sure you're pinching it when you're lighting it, if you're holding it, that it's not the sticky part sticking to your finger. Always carry some kind of flashlight with me. Honestly, these are just some freebies that I got from Harbor Freight. It's real easy to just throw them in your car. Just keep them there and forget about them. Throw a couple in there. I have extra batteries I throw in there also. And you can also actually keep the batteries out of this just so they don't get corroded in there. So you can put the batteries into another Ziploc bag or something to keep them from getting corroded inside the light. I actually usually carry also a headlamp because this light here is great. I like it. Has a little hook, so if I have to just actually maybe hang it under the hood of my vehicle or hold it down in somewhere where I can see, but it still takes a hand. And that's why I like this headlamp, because once I put it on my head, it's hands-free operation. So now I can still have a flashlight and I can still have both of my hands for free. So I definitely recommend headlamps for all of my flashlight needs. Another thing I would carry with me, an ink pen, pen and paper. I will always want to make sure that I have that in my car, because then I can leave someone a note. If I do have to leave my car, I can leave a note and tell them where I went, what was wrong, things like that, so they know where to look for me. So pen and paper, good idea. There are things I carry. This is just a food rations bar. This thing will last, it says 5 years, but I'm willing to bet it's going to last a lot longer than that as long as you don't open it. Food shouldn't be your major priority if something does happen where you broke down along the side of the road or you have to spend the night out. But it makes you feel better, and it does come in handy. And you know, this is relatively inexpensive. They seem pretty dry, but they actually taste pretty good. I actually like eating these. So just throwing a pack of this in your trunk, you know, you can check the expiration date, and if you want, you know, just toss it out after the expiration date and go buy yourself another one. Like I said, they're pretty cheap, and they're a nice food source to keep in your car. Another thing I carry in there, now this is obviously one of those things that I probably wouldn't take with me if I actually had to leave my car and go home, but it is nice. It's a there we go. It is an extendable shovel. Now it is plastic, so it's not going to hold up as well as a metal shovel might. But you know, for simple tasks of maybe digging out my car or digging out my tires so I can throw some dirt or rocks or something under the tires if I'm stuck. For all the room it takes up, this is a great thing, I think, to keep in your trunk. Now I would definitely, last thing here, make sure you have a bag. Now this is just an old Army rucksack. You can pick it up at a surplus store. But you could go to, you know, a good place to go is you can hit places like Walmart, Target after the school season starts. You can usually pick up, you know, a little kid's backpack on clearance for relatively cheap. Remember, this is only going in the trunk of your car, and if you have to get this out to get home, having a Hello Kitty backpack's not going to kill you. So go ahead, you can grab it, it's pretty cheap. But you always want to have this because I don't want to lug all this stuff. I don't want to be carrying all this in my hands if I have to leave my vehicle to head home. Well, I think that's about it. This was a little longer video than I hope that the Tailgate Talks videos are going to be, but I did want to cover all of the stuff that I carry in my kit, and we'll be doing a few other videos here soon. So, okay, thanks and have a great day.